We're short of workers. We have a population that is not reproducing it on its own with the same level that it used to. The only way we're going to have a great future in America is if we welcome and embrace immigrants, the dreamers, and all of them, because our ultimate goal is to help the dreamers, but get a path to citizenship for all 11 million or however many undocumented there are.
There was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer pushing for mass amnesty for at least the 11 million immigrants living illegally in the United States. Joining us right now is Texas Congressman, member of the House Armed Services Committee, Pat Fallon. Congressman, good to see you. Thanks very much. So how do you react to Schumer's comments?
You know, Maria, it kind of puzzles me because if Chuck Schumer is worried about our declining birth rate, I wonder why he's so pro-abortion. It doesn't make any sense. It's inconsistent. But then again, if the Democrats didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
Well, I mean, look, I want to get your take on why it's so hard to have immigration policy agreed upon. This is the cover of the New York Post today. We're expecting 18,000 illegal migrants a day once Title 42 goes away. I mean, right now, you're talking about 6,000 to 7,000 people crossing the Rio Grande into Texas every single day. Obviously, it's made things very difficult for the border towns and pretty much across the country with the busing of migrants everywhere. What happens when it's 18,000 a day?
You know, it's beyond a crisis. It's become a catastrophe. We've had 20 months in a row, Maria, of over at least 150,000 encounters, illegal encounters along the border. Never mind the known gotaways. It's about 250,000 right now a month. And then you add in the known gotaways, it's about 330,000. And it's absolutely unsustainable. But you know what Chuck Schumer and the Democrats never mentioned, Maria, are the 3.8 million people that are trying to get to this country legally and have to wait on average 9 years. We've got plenty of folks that want to come to this country and do it the right way, respecting the laws and the rules of the country that they want to become a part of. But when you allow mass unlawful migration, those great people have to wait even longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, given the fact that these migrants are jumping the line. And we do issue 1 million green cards every year, but those people are waiting, trying to do it the legal way. But look at these lines. It's incredible, the amount of people coming in. I want to switch gears, ask you about Ukraine, because Zelensky says that the fatal rocket that hit Poland was caused by Russian missiles. President Biden responded late last night. Here's the president. Watch.
What's your reaction to President Zelensky saying that the missiles that landed in Poland were not Ukrainian?
That's not the evidence.
That's not the evidence. President Biden also asking Congress for more money for Ukraine, $37 billion in emergency aid for Ukraine, Congressman. Your thoughts?
Well, from what we were briefed in the Armed Services Committee, it costs about $1.5 billion for the Ukrainians to stay in the fight. And they have sufficient funds from the many different aid packages that we've given them. But I feared, I really did. I had a lot of town halls, and I feared that the Democrats would just act like this is kind of, open-ended pit where it just never stops. And I'm all for supporting Ukraine, but we have to do it with some kind of restraint, and it's not just a blank check. And as far as the missiles go, we just have to wait and see and don't rush to judgment. And we'll see if they were indeed Ukrainian missiles that were shot trying to intercept Russian missiles. But the point of the matter is nothing would have landed in Poland had Vladimir Putin not invaded Ukraine in the first place.
Well, I mean, this is going to be, Batia, weigh in here. We're talking about $91.3 billion sent to Ukraine after this latest $37.7. It's double the U.S.'s average annual expenditure for its own war in Afghanistan.
Absolutely. I mean, the hypocrisy here is a little bit hard to ignore. The two topics you brought up, right? Our inability to police our own border on the one hand, and then insisting that Ukraine's territorial integrity is the most important thing in the world, and that working class Americans should be paying for that. Congressman, I wanted to ask you, first of all, thank you for your service, sir. I wanted to ask you, all right, you guys now have the House, right? So can we expect that you will be making good on these promises to start reconsidering all of this unlimited aid to Ukraine, that there will be immigration reform packages, and that your capital will not all be spent on, let's say, more symbolic issues like, maybe important ones, but things like Hunter Biden's laptop?
Well, it's going to be divided government. We're not going to have the Senate. And of course, Joe Biden wasn't on the ballot this time directly. So but we can't control what the Senate does, and we can't control what Joe Biden does, but we can control what the Republican majority does. And I think that the first thing you're going to see is we're going to pass strong legislation. Like I filed 6706, HR 6706, which was the Alien Act, which said if you overstay your visa, you're going to be fined $1,000 a day. You're not going to be allowed re-entry into the country for 5 years. We're going to redefine what credible fear is, and we're going to eliminate the green card lottery. It makes absolutely no sense. You should be allowed to come to this country on merit and merit alone. Things like that, those kind of pieces of legislation will finally pass the House. Now, what Chuck Schumer does with it, it's up to him. But we can only control our own chamber. Well,
having said that, I hope we are going to see oversight on the Hunter Biden laptop, because we know that the Biden family has taken in tens of millions of dollars from Chinese officials. And now Joe Biden has to defend America against the Chinese Communist Party, who wants to overtake America as the #1 superpower. And how can he do that if he's compromised? China's Xi Jinping was caught on camera lecturing Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau this week about leaks to the media. Let's take a look. Watch.
Everything we discuss is then leaked to the paper. That's not appropriate. And that's not how the way the conversation was conducted.
Sincerity on your part, free and open and frank dialogue, and that is what we will continue to have. We will continue to look to work constructively together, but there will be things we will disagree on, and we will have.
Let's create the conditions first.
A CCP spokesperson says that this was very normal exchange between two leaders, Congressman. What's your thought on the state of communist China and its efforts to dominate?
Well, Xi Jinping is a bully, and you've seen that with, they have their Belt and Road Initiative around the world where it's a debt trap to a lot of third world countries, and it's unfortunately a lot of them are falling for it. But what they respond to is strength, and Donald Trump is the only world leader that has stood up to China. Actually, that's not only Donald Trump, he's the only American leader, I think, that really has stood up to them, but the Australians have stood up to them, and then the Chinese. You don't do exactly what they tell you, then Xi Jinping will give you, a lecture like this, and Trudeau is just projecting weakness. I don't know what the strategy is for the China policy, sir. What is it? I mean, the president canceled the China initiative. Now we have, no official, investigation in terms of the surveillance programs that are out, in terms of the intellectual property theft. You've got CCP police stations all over the world. So what is the China policy of the United States? Well, I think Joe Biden hasn't made that clear. And so what I would do, I would recommend, number one, you tell them that you'll be in a hot war if you invade Taiwan. And that is called a deterrent. Deterrent strategies actually work because you don't want that hot war. We don't want them doing that. And we have to have some initiatives around the world as well to combat their Belt and Road Initiative. And and hold them to account with trade. Again, President Trump did that. Joe Biden is not. Yeah. They rely on it. They have the trade surplus with us. We don't have it with them. So they're more reliant on us than we are them. There are some, it's a global economy, so it's very different now. But you know what I just learned yesterday? The EU, their largest trading partner is no longer the United States. It's China. And they have to stop giving them a pass when they are really the tacit ally to Russia. And, when they invaded the Ukraine, their only superpower they can rely on is China right now.
Wow. Congressman, thank you. We'll keep watching all of that. We appreciate your time. Pat Fallon joining us this morning in Texas. We'll be right back.